Well, how's it going, kids? Welcome back to another live Friday at 3. Maybe this time we won't have any technical issues, and I won't get called away like I did last Friday. Family emergency of the four-legged variety, but family nonetheless. So, has everybody had a couple of good weeks there? Like the abominable snowman, I only have one thing to say. Gosh, it's hot. And thank God for Mr. Carrier, the inventor of air conditioning. I don't know how I could survive without him. So, nothing to really report at the beginning of this as far as any events that we're at right now. I think Nathan and the team has taken a break finally. Maybe spend some time at home for once. So we're just going to answer a few questions that got sent in. And then whatever y'all want to shoot at me today, give my best shot at replying to those and call it a day or call it a week. Been here pretty much by myself. Tracy wasn't here this week, so I just had to shoot solo. Let's just hope all that footage is in focus, maybe. So let me find our questions from this week. I scanned over them quickly a little while ago, put a little bit of thought into them, and maybe I can help a few of y'all figure out the issues that you're having. Wayne Townsend, he's got a good one. He has a 2003 Honda CBR 600 F4, and when you hit the starter button, the bike will start, but as soon as you let off of the starter button, the engine cuts out. What could the problem be? Well, I actually had to go look at the schematic for it, and I have a couple of suggestions. I mean, when it comes to electrical, a lot of things can come into play, and it can pull you down different rabbit holes. First, the switch itself, because there's a lot going on inside that starter switch. I mean, there's several different connection points inside there. A lot of things are happening depending on what part of the switch that you're using. So if I were just going to throw up one part at it, I would start with that one and replace it. But before you do that, this is going to be weird. Look at there's a junction box, I believe, behind the fairing near the headlights, and there's a ground connection there where several grounds are coming together and getting that's where their connections are made. So it's possible, believe it or not, that a grounding issue could be causing this from what I could pick up on the diagrams. Beyond that, look at your regular suspects, but it's just the fact that it will start and then you let off and then it dies. That really has me leaning toward the switch itself. But take a look at it, order up another one, and if you didn't see any other corrosion or any other bad connections, that's what you're really looking for, man. I'm telling you to look at that one ground area, but there could be other areas that might be affected. So just in general, look at all the different connections on your harness, and then maybe replace that switch assembly and see what happens. L42NV. What are the symptoms of a bad fuel filter? Curious. Mine tends to bog down some while riding. Someone told me it could be the fuel filter or the fuel injectors. Any help would be appreciated. When y'all send these questions to me, give me the year, make, and model. That helps a lot because now I'm just going to have to speak in generalities. But the symptoms of a bad fuel filter is usually lack of top-end performance. It's trying to pull the maximum amount of fuel through there for maximum horsepower, and it can't get it. And that's going to do two things. You're going to lose power, and you're going to lean out your engine, which is not good either. because it needs X amount of fuel in there to actually run cooler. I know it's counterintuitive, but that's how they operate. You lean out an engine, it'll get too hot in there and melt down a piston before you know it. But typically, bad fuel filter or a fuel filter that is stopped up usually manifests itself when you're at wide open throttle. Now, it doesn't say that it wouldn't cause a problem at idle as well. If it's really good and stopped up, it's not going to let it run at all. But usually, it starts with the top end performance being cut back a little bit. Nick K. Hey, my Ranger bogs down when I hit the gas. I think it could be some clogged jets or something else. I've never cleaned a carburetor before, and this seems to like it help it a lot. Still a little nervous. If you have any more tips or advice, please tell me. Honda Rancher, one of our favorite units, and I'm quite certain I did a carb clean video on that particular make and model. I believe it was our 2003. So go back, read that, or watch that one through. But you said it would bog down. That makes me think that maybe your fuel level is a little low because it's not getting fuel pulled up into that main jet. Typically on a carb, what gets clogged up first are your small jets, like the pilot jet, because they are so small, it's easy for them to get gummed up, or if there's any type of foreign material in the gas, of course, that's where it's going to go and create a blockage. But you're telling me it's when you really get on the throttle that it's causing a problem. So I would wonder about the fuel level as well. You can check that by opening up that valve for the bowl drain. Just hold your hose up and start to let it down the side of the carburetor. And when it gets to that, basically the junction of the float bowl and the bottom of the body of the carb, that's about where your level should be. So when you bring it down, that's when it should start spilling out. Check that before you break it open. I have a feeling that may be what's going on with yours. All right, Tony Polaris 570 SP Touring. John, yesterday I was riding my 2019 Polaris Sportsman Touring in very hot weather. Tell me about it. About 95 degrees. The engine was running about 197 to 199. That's about where it should be. We were averaging 30 miles an hour for about 30 miles. We didn't get any mud on the machine, but out of nowhere, I had a message that said ORV started showing up on the gauge, and it was swinging from 16 to 16.5. I rode for about 5 more miles, and the machine lost power and shut off. There was a smell of gas when I tried to restart it. The battery voltage was reading 9.8 to 10. It wouldn't turn over, just clicked. What do you think is going on here? I have only 900 miles on it. Well, evidently your charging system is kaput, because I don't want to say I don't think it's the stator, but I'm leaning toward the regulator rectifier, because it is not regulating it. 16 to 16 and a half volts, that's way too much by a couple of volts. So it probably damaged the battery by overcharging it. And it's, when you're saying it's got in between 9 and 10 volts, well, that tells me that 2 of the cells in there, 3 volts per cell, they're probably shorted out against each other, and they're canceling each other out pretty much. That's why you're only reading about 10 volts out of it. So 2 things, of course: new battery, and then a voltage regulator rectifier, and I bet you that will straighten it up. But before you run it too long, go ahead and do a running test of your AC voltage on the stator to make sure it's not out of whack and you're getting voltage on all 3 legs. And I think at around 2,000 RPMs, that's somewhere in between 35 and 40 volts AC, and that's going from phase to phase. Ricardo Chung, what would cause a 2009 CBR 600RR to turn off when it gets hot? My radiator is working fine, my fan is coming on, but still continues to turn off. Can you please help? All right, if it were overheating, it would tell you. Your running temp on that, I believe the fan cuts on at around in between 215 and 220, and it wants to drive it back down to that 215 Fahrenheit. temperature range. Now, I have run into this before, and it had really nothing to do with the cooling system. What it have, I can't remember if it was a 600R, it may have been a 1000. If memory serves, the voltage regulator rectifier is near the headers, and I think it's down low on the frame. And so it's close to the headers on that particular year, where I know that it was on a little bit older one, like an 03 through 05, and I would imagine that yours is in the same place. At any rate, that voltage regulator rectifier would heat up to the point it would quit sending any voltage to the charging system, and the bike would just run the battery down and cut off. It will cool down. Sometimes it would have enough juice to restart, but then it would go through that same cycle again. So take a look at your charging voltage when it's hot. Pop the seat up, put a voltmeter on that battery, and see what you read. If it starts going down or just shuts off, well, that's going to be your culprit. I would start there. Get out a temp gauge if you hadn't already bought one of those little, they don't cost that much, one of those infrared guns, and just make sure your machine's turning on the fan when it's supposed to, right around that 215 to 218 mark, and then brings it back down. All right, guys. Well, I think that gets me for last week. Let's see what y'all are shipping to me for this one. All right. Kyle Reese. Hey, how's it going, Kyle? Kyle and I have been working on a ongoing problem. I've actually got about 3 or 4 going on at the same time on our email account. And Hank, if you would drop that address in there, so if people want to ask me questions directly, that's the best way to do it. The Ask Partzilla email address. Hey, John, thank you for your Q&A. I wouldn't know quite what to do. How do you clean that cylinder head with carbon all over it? And boy, does this have carbon on it. I've looked at the pictures. Is there some special biodegradable cleaner I could use, or a brush? I wasn't able to get any bubbles by blowing compressed air into the ports with water on top of the deck where the valves are. So I'm sure I've made a mistake somewhere. Not necessarily, but that eliminates one more condition. He was having a non-running issue, way down on compression. The leak down test was like 90-something%. I almost wondered if the machine had jumped time, and I'm still not convinced that it didn't. But we were eliminating whether or not it needed to have a valve job. But this evidently getting a lot of oil into his combustion chamber because the valves are just covered. But to answer your question, a lot of the times when I break down a head, I will use a wire brush to get a hold of the valves. But you do not want to do that on the head because it's aluminum or aluminium. Don't want to upset Jeremy Clarkston. You're going to make a mess doing this. But the machine shop that I use here, what they use to actually soak the heads in, and it's a big, like 55-gallon drum, carburetor cleaner. So to get each chamber done, before you pull the valves, pour carburetor cleaner and let it sit on there for several hours, and then brush it off. And I think that'll get the majority of it. Now, once you've done that, then we break down the head, then you'll get out a brush after the valves, and just don't get too carried away with them. But the valves are tough, so they should be able to put up with a fair amount of wire brush without affecting their face, scarring the face on them. But Kyle, we're going to get this thing figured out eventually. Well, where I'm leaning toward yours is I probably wouldn't go through the pain of boring it and then having to recoat the cylinders with Nicosil. Thinking about just going with another set of rings, and then pop her back together and see what she does. So that's going to be my recommendation when I get back to my computer. I've spent wasn't ignoring you, I spent most of the weekend out here by myself doing some recording. But we will get this thing figured out. Noisy Boy asks, hey, John, good evening from South Africa. How's it going down there? I was wondering if you can explain and suggest a solution for a stuck tachometer needle on my 2009 R6 dash. Everything works on the dash. Oof. It's a tiny little motor, I believe, that's operating inside of that. So more than likely, it is frozen up. I've never cracked open one of those I've never opened up one before, but that would be my bet, is that that little motor needs to be freed up if at all possible. If it doesn't work, well, the downside is kind of low, kind of, if you can get it open up and take a look at it. Now I know that there are different companies that offer rebuild service for older instrument clusters for the automotive industry, and I would bet that there are probably services out there that could open that one up and potentially repair it, clean it, and get it back operation. Do I know any of those off the top of my head for the that particular year, make, and model? No, but I would bet that there are a couple out there. All right, Ben S asks, hey John, I took apart my 2008 YFZ 450 engine to rebuild. My cylinder looks super clean, but it's glazed, almost like a polished inside. Do you recommend replacing the cylinder, or could the cylinder be honed? Well, I'm actually staring at a 2009 YFZ 450, my son's, that we did a top end on. Gosh, it's been a couple of years ago. And I ended up replacing the cylinder in it because, if I remember correctly, it's a plated cylinder and they don't take well to boring. And if you bore them, you have to recoat them. So I elected to go with a new cylinder. That being said, if you just wanted to try cleaning it, you don't want to run a regular hone through a cylinder like that, or like Kyle's R6. But what you can use, it looks like a brush, but it's a nylon type brush, and you can use that to clean it back up, and then potentially put in a new set of rings and a piston and see what that does. But in my case, I went ahead and just replaced the cylinder on his. And I'm sure that we've got that video live if you don't want me to walk you through or walk with you during the process if you decide to break yours down. All right. Paul Gravinsky. How's it going, Paul? John, long time no see. I've been nonstop since the beginning of the year. Oh boy, I bet. Zero turns have been coming in like there's no tomorrow. So a lady called me about a 2006 Big Bear YFM 400. They have been inside this thing and replaced the one-way bearing on the flywheel from what she said. Anyway, I asked them to get the jump box, and the car jumped right out of the manifold. Needless to say, I didn't bring it home with me. Also, would oven cleaner be too strong for Kyle's head? That's another good suggestion. Yeah, go for the oven cleaner. I've heard that works as well. But no, it shouldn't be too strong for or do any damage to the R6 head. All right, I see Hank typing in the background. Are you telling me? Okay, there's another one. John O'Brien asks. He has a 2006 500 EFI Polaris Ranger. Oh boy, has numerous electrical issues, repaired wiring issues of broken wires and connectors. Motor only has 1,600 hours. Anyway, to remove the injection system and convert it to a carb system, or is it even worth it? Farmer is fed up with issue after issue of unreliable machine. I've been asked this one before. Could you get a carburetor on there? Maybe, but I don't think it would be worth it. I mean, that engine was designed for fuel injection, and I wonder. You said it was in a farm environment. I wonder if this thing is having so many issues because some little furry guys have really had their way with the engine harness. And if that's the case, you can chase down all those connections, but invariably, it's never really fixed until you do the harness. Now, the good part is on the Ranger, especially one that old, it's not that complicated. It's not that tough to do, especially the engine harness part of it. Now, I'm pretty sure, I think that there are two harness. So you've got the engine harness and then you've got the main harness. So just be aware of that if you do decide to jump in and replace it. But once again, it's not that tough to do. You've got the main section that comes up to the dash. It goes out to the ancillary devices like the lights and whatnot, but the majority of it This goes back to the engine and the charging system, so it's not that bad. All right, well, Hank is telling me that we've got no more questions, so it looks like I called up for y'all, to y'all this week. Hopefully, this was a smooth stream and we didn't drop out or freeze up any, because dang, that is so annoying when that happens. We apologize for 2 weeks ago when we froze up, threw up my hands at that point and just went on home. Well, speaking of that, I think we're going to wrap it up for the day. Well, everybody, thanks for swinging by, spending a little time with us, and y'all just send the questions out to me, see if I can help you along. We will, Kyle, we're going to figure out your machine, and I think I may even send you out a set of rings. That sound like a good idea? I think we may have to help Kyle out a little bit on his machine, because he's definitely put in the time and the effort to at least get it broken down to see what's going on in there. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it for me. Everybody have a great week, a great weekend, or a great weekend, a great week. And God willing, we will see you next Friday at 3. Y'all take care.